So you've got this amazing idea, right? The kind that keeps you up at night. But then the big question hits. Could this actually make money? It's the ultimate question for anyone with a dream. How do you go from a passion project to a profitable business? Well, let's break it down. It usually starts with something we love. Let's take a coffee shop, for our example. It sounds simple enough. You make fantastic coffee, people line up to buy it, and you make a profit. Easy peasy. Or is it?
Come on, who hasn't had that dream of being their own boss, right? It's a powerful idea. But to turn that dream into a reality, you've got to get real comfortable with the numbers.
Okay, here's where reality bites back. Hard. For our little coffee shop, before we've even ground a single bean, we are already in the red. We've got $2,000 for rent and another $500 for insurance. That's $2,500 we owe before a single customer walks through the door. And this brings us to a super critical business concept.
So, how do we climb out of that hole and actually start making money? Well, first things first, we've got to understand what we're up against. And it turns out not all costs are created equal. They actually fall into two very different buckets.
Yeah, you've got two main categories. On one side, you have fixed costs. These guys are stubborn, they don't change. And then you have variable costs, and these ones, well, they vary. Understanding this difference is absolutely key to getting your finances under control.
Think of fixed costs as the relentless bills that land on your doormat every single month, like clockwork, rain or shine. Whether you sell 1,000,000 cups of coffee or 0, your rent, your insurance, the payments on that loan you took out, they don't care how your sales are doing. They just need to get paid.
All right, now let's flip to the other side, variable costs. These are completely different because they are tied directly to every single item you produce. For every cup of coffee you sell, you've got the cost of the beans, the milk, the cup, the lid, all of it. The more you sell, the higher these costs go. Simple as that. No sales, no variable costs.
So when you put them together, it's pretty straightforward. Your fixed costs plus your variable costs. That equals your total costs, and that is the number you've got to conquer to turn a profit.
Okay, so we've got a handle on our costs. But here's where things get really interesting. You'd probably think that as a business gets bigger, its costs just get bigger too, right? Well, not exactly. In fact, sometimes getting bigger can actually make you cheaper.
This little bit of business magic is called economies of scale. And honestly, it's like a superpower for growing companies. The basic idea is, the more you produce, the less it costs to make each individual item. This is how the big players get such a massive leg up on the competition.
Just think about it with our coffee shop. We're buying, one bag of beans at a time? We're paying top dollar. But a giant coffee chain, they're buying 10,000 tons of beans. They get these insane discounts. That's called purchasing power, and it's a perfect example of economies of scale in action.
And it's not just about buying stuff cheap. Big companies can run a huge TV ad and spread that cost over millions of sales, making it just pennies per item. They can afford super-fast, hyper-efficient machines that a startup could only dream of. Scale gives you advantages all over the place.
Let's put some numbers on this. Imagine a company making light bulbs. When they only make, say, 1,000 bulbs, their total cost is $5,000. You do the math, that's $5 per bulb. But watch what happens when they ramp up production to 6,000 bulbs. Suddenly, those fixed costs are spread so thin that the average cost per bulb plummets to just $2.50. Wow, they literally cut their cost in half just by making more stuff.
Okay, so we get our costs. We know that getting bigger can make things cheaper, but all of this leads to the single most critical question for any new business. What is the absolute bare minimum we need to sell just to keep the lights on?
Seriously, this is the question. It keeps founders staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m. We're not talking about getting rich yet. This is pure survival mode. How many units, how many cups of coffee do we have to sell just to pay the bills and not go under?
And the answer to that question has a name: the break-even point. It's that perfect, beautiful moment where the scales are perfectly balanced. The money coming in is exactly the same as the money going out.
So let's be super clear. At your break-even point, your profit is a big, fat zero. Zilch. Nada. Now, you haven't lost any money, which is a huge win, but you haven't made any either. You're just treading water.
The good news is you don't have to guess what this number is. There's a pretty simple formula for it. All you do is take your total fixed costs, and you divide that by the price you sell one item for minus what it costs you to make that one item.
Boom, that'll tell you the exact number of units you need to sell to survive.
But let's be real for a second. Nobody gets into business just to survive. Breaking even is the starting line, not the trophy. The real goal is to thrive. And to do that, you need a buffer. You need a safety net.
Think about it. Life happens. A machine breaks, a key supplier jacks up their prices. You have a surprisingly slow month. If you're living right on that break-even edge, any little hiccup can push you over. You absolutely need some breathing room.
And that breathing room, that cushion, has a name too. It's called your margin of safety. It's basically the difference between your break-even point and what you're actually selling. The bigger that gap is, the safer, the healthier, and the more secure your business is.
So look at it this way. If your break-even point is selling 3,000 units a month, but you're actually selling 6,000, that whole space in between, that extra 3,000 units, that's your margin of safety. That's your cushion that protects you when things go wrong.
So there you have it. From a simple idea for a cup of coffee, to understanding your costs, to using scale to your advantage, and finally, to finding your survival number, you now have the fundamental tools to look at any business idea and ask the really important questions. So I'll just leave you with this to think about. What's the break-even point on your big idea?